can do a specialized background for us when we do.
Right.
Anyways, but thank you so much again for being here today to see if we can get somebody who can.
Oopsie daisy.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, are you still there? Oh, yes. Okay. Yep. You guys are live, but you're early. So just chat or whatever, or go ahead and start if you want to.
How is tell me about your group a little bit?
Yeah. So we are Lake Highlands area moms and more against racism. Right after George Floyd's murder, I started this group and it just kind of took off. So
it's fairly recent.
Yes, very recent. And it was a response to that. And I have a partner, a Black mom, Danita. So she and I are the admins. She works for the Poor People's Campaign.
Yeah, familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. And so she's kind of taught us a lot about that. We try to be nonpartisan, but right now this issue of anti-racism pretty clearly falls one way or the other. So, but our group, I think, Jessica, don't you think, I feel like if there are Trump voters, they are not watching and they are not really engaged right now.
Yeah.
But initially, when that happened this summer, a lot more people were open. And so we're just a place of listening and conversation and raising up, especially women of color, and hearing their voices. And so I'm just kind of like the mediator, the conduit for organizing things. And we do lots of watch parties. We have lots of interviews with people. We have group therapy sessions for people of color and for white allies separately. That's kind of one of the things I'm most proud of right now, because this has been such a traumatic time. I just came from a impromptu protest that I organized this afternoon with a voter registration. So we're doing voter registration things. We have say their names memorial that's been traveling around Lake Highlands. We're doing these diversity baskets for all the Lake Highlands area classrooms. So we do a lot, we're trying to get out there and make a difference.
Mm-hmm. And I want to interject and just say what it's meant to me, because I wasn't originally part of it, and Lori and then another one of our moderators, Emily, reached out to me. So I work for Richardson District, and I have a chair on the Council of PTAs, and so they reached out to help bring in the inclusivity, diversity, and equity amongst our community. And just being a person that has always been involved with organizations and this kind of work, we're working with Laurie, with Danita, with Emily, with the other women, Rachel, so many women that are part of the group. There's a point where you think, well, I already know it all. At sometimes you get this into this little stagnant mode of where you think, I have a grasp of things. And I think being part of the group and seeing all of the amazing things that have came out of it, it's helped me grow as a person, and it's helped me grow as a Latina, and realizing the amazing things that we can do united, and so it's really amazing group of people. We have very sometimes can be very strong discussions, but we're in a safe place. Mm-hmm. And we all are learning from one another in our experiences. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate this group a great deal. I think it's necessary. I feel like it's a blessing. That's the way I want to say.
And we have evolved to be more than moms. So we, we've got dads, grandparents, teachers, principals, the RISD school superintendent, we have a connection with. So yeah, we're really trying to influence RISD too, but also lots of teachers are in our group. And we are also beyond Lake Highlands. So that's kind of how it started, but we have people in lots of different cities too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's who we are.
League of Women Voters is also not just women.
Yes, okay.
And we're trying to not all be old anymore. We're trying to.
Oh, good. Well, Jessica's in it,
You
and
can
I need to join it.
Good. Are you in the Dallas League, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I'm in the Dallas League, and I've already participated in a couple of the meetings, and I am in like awe. Like I've learned so much already. And Robin, she's amazing.
Robin's
She's,
amazing.
I mean, everybody is. Everyone that I've come across with so far, you all are just a plethora of knowledge and of empowerment. And so I was really excited to have you say yes to come and speak to us, to our group, and to everybody who's going to chime in from here on out, so that you can I mean, there's a lot of questions. Before we get into all of that, I just want to say hi to everybody. My name is Jessica Lucas, and if you already chiming in, you heard a little bit about what we all do, and we're here to talk about voting and voting registration and all of those, not just fundamental questions, but questions. I mean, I have questions, and I'm a VDR. I have questions. So I found this to be an amazing opportunity to just explore all of those foundations of voting, what the requirements are, all of those, what we think are basics, but I think it's right now detrimental for all of us to have this knowledge. And I want to introduce everyone to Miss Barbara Larkin, who is the League of Women Voters VP of Voter Outreach. So I'm gonna carry it on to you.
Okay.
Oh, and Jessica, let me tell everybody who you are too. So welcome Lake Highlands area Moms and More Against Racism. It has been a busy couple of weeks. I'm Lowry. I just came from, about 10 of you joined me for this silent protest, and it was so meaningful. And we had so many people honking and raising their fists. And what our goal was just to let our Black community neighbors know that we are with them, because I know so many of you are feeling like people just don't care about us. And we want you to know that we care about you. We've got your backs, and we are in this with you. And one lady pulled over and walked all the way over to where we were just to visit and tell us how meaningful and healing it was for her. So that made it worth it. Plus, we had our voter registration set up on the corner, and Rachel registered her first voter, and she was so excited. So that's what this is all about too. And Jessica is an amazing addition to our moderator team. She's super busy. She's a teacher in RISD, and she's also chair of the inclusiveness. Wait, she's on the PTA board, the RISD PTA. Is that your title?
Yes, I am the inclusiveness chair for the RISD PTA Council of PTAs. Yes, that is correct.
Muy bien. And you are our go-to translator for our voter registrations too. We can call you, and that will help us too while we're still learning Spanish. So since I've had such a busy week, and I'm gonna go eat some pizza and hang out with my family, and let Miss Jessica and Barbara take it over. And thank you so much for being here. And everybody help us get out the vote.
Yes, get out the vote.
Thank you. Do you want to do any questions first, or do you want me to just do my presentation and then do questions?
I think let's go ahead and do your presentation, and then this, because it might actually answer some of the questions that I have.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can share my screen. Oh, I don't see it.
Let me see here.
How do I get
Do you see a?
I'm here. So I sent you a request to be the hostess, Barbara,
Yeah,
and you accepted that.
I haven't accepted it yet.
Oh, I think if you do that, it will. Yeah. Do you see that on there?
I see that she is already the host. So then you should see a green share screen button.
I did.
Maybe if you change the gallery or something.
It's when I do that, my screen comes up, but I don't see it.
Mm,
And you are the hostess, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, I still see share screen on mine. No,
Mhm.
but host, I see what I did wrong. Okay, okay, you guys chat for a minute. Let me see if I can fix it while you're on there.
Okay, we'll try it
I'll
again.
chat about the
Yes.
questions.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Well, I guess we're gonna
Start with a
okay.
question.
We're gonna go over the questions. Okay, so some of the questions that some of our members had, and what Miss Laurie and I had went over before, was one about curbside voting. So what does that look like? Is it for election day only? Is it something that's being offered for earlier voting? And who is it for?
Okay.
And
Do you
so,
want me to answer that now, or do you want me to wait till I kind of get to that section?
no, sure, go ahead and answer now.
Answer now. So, because I normally the background on curbside voting. Curbside voting is something that is available to anyone during early voting or during election day.
Oh,
It is
okay.
intended for people that cannot really get out of their car and go into the polling location. The polling location is already set up with ADA certified machines. It always has some polling machines that are at the level for people that are in wheelchairs. It's set up for people that are listening or hearing impaired or blind. So it's organized for disabled people to be able to go into the polling location if they can. If they feel like they really cannot, then curbside voting is something that you can pull up. It's usually you pull up, and there's usually some of the locations have a button outside. They put a little stand with a button, and it typically someone brings someone else is driving or someone else is assisting the voter. It doesn't have to be that way, but usually so someone bringing in their elderly mother or something like that to curbside vote, and they push the button, and then so what happens is the poll workers can see there's someone that needs to curbside vote, and they bring the equipment out to you. It's actually kind of a cumbersome process. I actually don't recommend it unless someone really needs it. They bring out the first, when when you vote. I don't know if you all voted before, you know that when you first vote, you check in. So there's a check-in process. There's like 3 different processes. So, and so you check in, and with the e-poll book is a little like the iPad thing. And then they take that back out, and then they go make sure that worked. Then they get your ballot and they pick up one of the machines and they bring that out to the car. The machine itself is very heavy. It's 25 pounds. And they sort of they open your door, stick that on your lap, and you vote in person. And then they take the machine back, they take it back in, and they put the ballot into the what we used to call the polls, the recycle bin, which is the third step of voting, which is the counter.
Which
So
is the counter.
that's what counts the vote. So
okay. So before we go really quickly, Lori went ahead and put on the chat there, if you could please give her back the hosting ability so that she can fix our technical issue.
How do I do that?
So you're gonna click on the participants, and you'll see our names come up. And so then when you scan over our name, it should offer. Oh, there you go.
Did it work?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did. Okay. So how do we know which polling location will offer that curbside voting, if that's something that a citizen wants to look into? Are they all going to offer that, or
All polling locations offer curbside voting.
all?
So we have in Dallas, we have what's called vote centers. And vote centers, that was invented a couple years ago, and they tested it in early voting, and then they added it for election day voting. So we have what's called vote centers, which means every single polling location has got the exact same setup. So you can go throughout the entire early voting period and through election day, you can go to any location, and the locations are all set up pretty much exactly the same. So yes, and so you have to, if you live in Dallas County and are registered vote in Dallas County, you have to vote in Dallas County.
You have to vote in Dallas County. All right. Thank you so much. So another question they had is, what happens in Texas regarding the counting of votes? Are they computed on election? I've always known that early voting is tallied after 7 p.m. on election day. Is that accurate? Is that correct?
I actually been meaning to look this up, and I do not know the answer. I am sorry that I don't know the answer. I will eventually know. I'll get back to you because I will eventually know the answer to that.
Okay.
I was thinking that on Friday, October 30th at 7 o'clock. So that's when, and they don't, then the polls are closed on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of Halloween, October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. The polls are not open. And that is when I think they count those votes. But I keep meaning to confirm that, and I haven't 100% confirmed it.
I think the conversation about counting the votes and that process is even more magnified right now with the current election. And so
it was something that no one used to ask, and now everyone
right.
So I better find out.
Yeah, so it's something that everybody seems very interested in, and within reason, because it's a very polarized election. It's a very heated one, and on both sides. And so I think it's good to have that information out there, to have some transparency on there. So the next question is, are high schools required to register 17 to 18-year-olds?
They are supposed to offer, they are required to offer registration. You can only register when you're 17 and 10 months old.
Right.
But they are supposed to be required to offer registration. I think it's multiple times per year.
Multiple times per year.
I think so. We could check that out, but I think it's more than once per year. But my understanding is very few schools are complying.
Yes.
That is what we have. That's our conclusion. We've actually, at the league, it used to be that different organizations sort of had different turf, kind of, because physically it just worked better. It's like some people, like that group, you handle the high schools, we'll handle the colleges. So we were the community colleges. That's how it used to work. Now in the pandemic, because everything's on Zoom and so much, we've just finally gone to very much in person. But before, most of what we were doing was online. We were doing videos to show people how to register to vote and all this stuff. But so now everything's changed a little bit in terms of like, it's simpler for me to go to the high school because I literally can just go this way in Zoom to the high school, So it's actually changing the dynamics of who's registering who. And so it'll be interesting to see if that evolves. You don't have to go to the high school to explain to everybody how it works.
Exactly. I mean, honestly, I think with the pandemic has brought so much inequity to light. And I think it's also in the process of bringing all that inequity, it's also challenged us to think creatively, to think out of the box. And I really hope that some of the things that we are incorporating, because we really just didn't have a choice but to do it, to adapt, I really hope that we continue like having these kind of panels. And it's some, you even in regards to voter registration and pushing out that information. I was having a conversation not too long ago, and I was thinking, why didn't we ever do this before? The accessibility to get on just your phone, everybody, and I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people do have the smartphones that can access like our panel that we're having today.
Exactly.
And so why weren't we doing this before?
Yeah,
It's
there's
I,
there's definitely the silver lining of
yes,
this is that it's created this whole new venue of communication and information sharing that it is a positive, definitely.
yes, yes.
So,
So Lori says that she's also heard of some people discount votes because signatures don't quite match. And this can be hard for elderly people or people who have had a stroke or certain, certain kind of disabilities. What can we do about them complying or offer to be there doing it for them? Or,
um, okay, so that's part of the vote by mail process. That
okay,
your signature is really not doesn't come into play in the voting in person process.
okay,
It's not. No one's paying much attention. In the vote by mail process is when the signature comes into play. So what happens? The way it works is that in order, and I'll get to this a little bit in the vote by mail section, but the bottom line in the vote by mail, there's two pieces of the process, and everybody seems to be a little bit confused about them. That
yes.
you have to apply to vote by mail. So
Mhm.
the application, a lot of folks thought they had a ballot, but they just had an application to get a ballot. So the whole first piece of vote by mail, you have to apply to get a ballot. And I've been asked do you have to get approved? And it's not that you really get approved, but you do have to fill out the form exactly right.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you don't, that you don't get put on the list. So when you fill out the application to vote by mail, you fill it all out. You have to explain you have to check the box that explains why you're voting by mail, and you have to sign it and date it. And one of the things that we tell people is to take a photo of your application to vote by mail. We highly recommend that because then because a lot of people, when you, if you're over 65, you can apply for vote by mail for a whole calendar year at a time. So you can apply to vote by mail and you can check a box that says annual. And so then you'll be on the list for the whole year to get vote by mail ballots. But what that means is that some people that are now getting vote by mail ballots signed back in January, and they don't remember what that signature looked like. They have no idea. So that's why we say, take a picture.
Picture.
Because when you finally, just so you know, when you apply to get a vote by mail ballot, you get put on the vote by mail list. You are
Mhm.
now not on the vote in person list. You can't walk in and vote in person. You know that whole thing of vote by mail and then go vote in person? You
Uh-huh.
cannot do that in Texas. You're either
I
on one list or you're on the other list. You are not on both lists.
I did not know that. I did not know that. Okay. You
Yes.
are on one list or in the other.
Or not on
Got
both
it.
lists. If once you're on the vote by mail list, they take you off the vote in person list. You're not on there. If you try to walk in to vote in person, they say you are not on the list. We can see that you have a vote by mail ballot coming to your house. So
Mhm.
just so you know. So so what happens is when you do vote by mail, you sign it, and that signature, that's when the application for vote by mail comes in, the county takes a digital picture of your signature.
Mhm.
When the real ballot comes in, that you have to sign like on the back of the envelope, there's a place to sign it. You have there's a thing called a signature board, which is they work for Dallas County and they compare those two signatures. So
Huh.
the easiest way to help someone is to help them take a picture of their application to vote by mail, because then they can see the signature, and then they can, when they're filling out their ballot, they can go, okay, I got to make it look like that.
Mhm.
Uh, and it is hard for elderly people. There's no question. And so I'm not a big fan of this, but the signature is one of the ways they think they're preventing fraud. I think there are probably better ways. I mean, I have a whole list of things that are on my list of things that need to be changed by the legislators, maybe in the next round or the next round of the Texas legislative session. And
Mhm.
that whole concept of how you protect against fraud in the vote by mail is there's some things in there that make it very hard for people to vote. And
Right. Right.
that's one of
I
them.
mean, I find it just listening to you when we talk about the signature and the importance of the signature. I mean, I, there I mean, I can't even think. I'm like going through my mind of all the actions that I do and the signatures. And sometimes it's like 2 letters, and sometimes it's like four, my whole name. Sometimes it's just, so that's
There
really
aren't
interesting.
there aren't very many spots right now. This is something that feels very retro to me. There are
Mhm.
very few places right now in our lives where the signature matters. Literally, it feels like that was something that mattered back like 20 or 30 years ago. So I
Mhm.
agree, it's a very kind of retro concept.
It
And
is.
yeah, so
It is.
okay.
And I don't think it is. And to be honest, I don't think it's very inclusive for those who have certain disabilities, or I know I have a slight tremor on my right hand, which is the prominent hand, which is my hand that I use to sign.
Right.
So I mean, it does get you to think, because is it my ballot not going to get counted if like if I do the mail in,
So
because
yeah, mostly in the process, just so you know, most
Mhm.
of the places in the process of the voting process, you are allowed to designate someone to help you.
There we
So
go.
yeah, both in voting. So if you come in and you need help voting, you can either bring your daughter with you or you can ask a poll worker to help you.
Okay.
For voter registration, if you're allowed to register your son, daughter, or your spouse, as long as you sign your name and you put agent. So
Hmm.
there are actually a lot of ways in the process that you can ask someone to help you. So my
Okay.
thought is, and I don't quite know exactly how you do that in the vote by mail process, but there
Hmm.
might be a way that you can sort of designate someone to help you with the signature.
Hmm. And so, in talking about types of fraud, or in types of, we hear a lot about rare fraud. I'm not sure what that is.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of it, and I know that we've had that come up. And so I want to know if you have any knowledge about what that is, if you can talk
Um,
about what rare fraud is.
yeah, I don't quite know what that means. What I do know is that when people say fraud is rare, what they mean is that certainly in Texas, there is
Mhm.
we have since they actually changed the election law, there was a few instances back in 2015 or 16 of something
Mhm.
called vote harvesting, which I can explain. But
Yes.
since then, since they stopped that, we have had almost it's infinitesimal of of the is this of 16 million votes. We've had a couple of people, and the people that have committed fraud had done it by accident mostly. It's like a permanent resident doesn't realize that you have to be a citizen to vote, and they vote. But there has been very few cases in Texas of people that fraudulently vote um, on purpose. And
Mhm.
one of the reasons, when you think about it, I can explain the whole system. The system is set up in a way that makes it very difficult to fake vote.
Mhm.
You actually would have to set up fake people to fake vote because you have to register, and they mail you things, and then if it comes back undelivered, they but so if you were setting up fake people, if I was setting up Barbara Larkin and Jane Larkin in the same house and pretending that I was two people, I'm committing a felony. So
Mhm.
to get 2 votes in a state with 29 million people, it's just like no one does that. Like, no. It's just
Yeah.
it's not a logical thing to do. So
When
I
you
mean,
put it in that perspective, it does, it's like, okay, you're really making, you might as well have just gone to go actually put in your real vote,
exactly.
taken
I
10
mean,
people with you.
we have the hardest time getting real people to vote. And so
Yes.
that, it's like trying to get anybody to vote twice or three, it just doesn't happen. So
Hmm.
at least it
Yeah.
doesn't we have very strict laws. We have some of the strictest laws in the country in Texas. So,
Yeah. Yes, it's what I'm constantly told, that we have some of the strictest laws. So in regards to the next question that we have here, who are these election judges that show up? What is their job? Looking for mistakes to discount people's votes. It's one of the questions that was submitted.
Okay, so I don't, okay, look, I'll just,
We're kind of going.
yeah, at some point I should go back to my presentation because I need to
Yes.
back up. But okay, so an election judge is not a person who's really looking for mistakes. The polls are each poll location is got a team. And the poll location has usually 2 election judges in a poll location, and then it has everybody else. It's an election clerk. In a normal polling location, there'll be like 2 election judges, of the kind of senior judge and the junior judge, and then there might be 10 to 12 clerks. The election judge, like for example, I've worked at a polling location for 2 or 3 years, and I love my election judge. He's very reasonable. He knows all the rules. He's great with all the equipment. It's actually kind of a hard job because there's a lot of, I mean, when I say there's 3 pieces to the process, there's literally plugs and software, and there's just every piece of the process has things that's a little bit complicated. So
Mhm.
working the polls is not a simple thing, and people are like, oh, it's easy, and it's not really easy. It's actually kind of hard and intense, but can be fun and gratifying, and I enjoy doing it. But I mean, it's not like you're like, woo, that was easy. I never feel that way.
Yeah.
It's an intense, and you also, usually you're working is sometimes 12 and 14-hour days. And so the election judge is the person who runs the whole polling location. So each little
Mhm.
polling location has an election judge. So I'm not sure that's what they're asking. They may be asking about, I'm not quite sure how if they can,
Well, I think it's just what the election judge does,
yeah,
and I think the second part of that question, are they looking for mistakes to discount people's votes?
no,
Um, so it's
definitely
good
not.
that
I
we're
mean, not
bringing.
the, most of the election judges I've worked with and know are really trying to make it all work. They
Mhm.
and I feel like Dallas County tries really hard to count every vote. They try really hard. Now,
Mhm.
whether there's some pieces of the puzzle that I worry about. Um, I worry about the voter registration system because they periodically are cleaning the data. In Dallas, we have about 1.3 million registered voters, and they do different things to clean up the data in the voter registration system to make sure that there's nobody in there twice, or that somebody that moved and didn't tell them. They're constantly checking it for that kind
Mhm.
of thing, and occasionally they make some errors. Okay.
Mhm.
So where and I don't know how they clean up their data. Are they looking at utility bills, or I think like they're getting like data feeds in, and they are constantly checking those 1.3 million to make sure there's no one's being double counted and that kind of thing. So, but that is an area that they could make mistakes, and I've heard them admit that I've heard them say, oh yeah, we made a mistake. They must have thrown someone off the rolls by accident. And I
Mhm.
think that might be the most common thing that's going on in terms of mistakes. My experience with the actual polling process is the election judges are trying very hard to count everyone's vote.
Mhm.
I've seen them go way out of their way to try to count people's vote.
And I'm glad that you're here talking about that, because that's why we really wanted to have this panel, because there is so much misinformation, misconceptions, and around the whole voting process, starting from when you register to vote to when the day that you go and place your ballot. There's so much misinformation. And I think because this election season is so polarized, so heated, so emotional. It just makes it really hard to sift through the what is actual and what is not, you know.
Right.
And so I really love that you are talking about that, and I really do want to get more into the putting people off the rolls. But before we do, because I do want to go back to your presentation, we're having some technical issues. I don't know if it's something that you might want to share with Laurie so she can share it and see if that works, or if you just want to kind of freehand and
Maybe I'll just walk through it. Yeah.
yeah, so let's go ahead and walk through it, because I think we need to go back to the basics.
Yeah. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So I'll try to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So the beginning is who votes in Texas, and
There we go.
we do have one of the lowest voting percentages of all the states. And when you for Texas, the voter suppression is more happening at the legal area. That's where the voter suppression, I think, is happening. Is that the laws are? I mean, we do a good job of making it impossible to vote twice, but the laws are so strict that it causes some people to just say, "Oh, forget it. It's too hard." So it's
Mhm.
of the 29 million Texans that we have, about 19 million of them could be registered to vote. And 16.5 million of them are registered to vote right now. So there's still another 2.5 million that could be registered. But I don't
Yeah.
know if anyone knows how many people voted, say, in 2018 when Senator Ted Cruz ran against Beto O'Rourke. Do you have any
Mhm.
guess how many people voted?
No, I'm guessing just by the numbers, it was a low turnout.
It was our highest turnout ever. Like it
Wow.
was our biggest number ever, and it was actually about 8.3 million people. So of 16.5 million people, our biggest election ever was 8.3 million. So
Eight
you can see that means 8 million people stayed home and didn't vote.
and
And
didn't vote.
so, yeah, so in Texas, we have a long way to go, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
Mhm.
So the whole like sort of why people don't vote. Okay, so we'll talk about why people don't vote. The one that I have focused on a lot because there's actually something I can do about it is
Mhm.
that people don't understand the process. So that's a big one for me, is because I feel of that 8 million, a lot of those people, because we're out on campuses and we talk to people all the time, and we know that people are confused by the process. So we
Yes.
feel like, okay, that's at least one area that I can focus on, right? And we would always encourage at every meeting that I'm at and every presentation I do, I say, if you can become a voting expert, then you can go help a few other people work themselves through the process, because that
Yes.
really is helpful. The other reason people don't vote are things like you can't afford an ID, you don't have access to a car, you don't have website access. This has become a very website intensive process, voting, and which when I go through some things, you can see that. Some people think it doesn't matter. That's not too many, that's a little bit. And then some people feel like the candidate choices are bad and they don't like the political parties. So those
Right.
are all the reasons that we see people not voting. But some of those, like the people that can't afford an ID and don't have website access and don't have access to car, those are things that we can also help people. That's an area where
Right.
there's also things you can do to help people.
Yeah. And in what our group has been doing in the voter outreach, I think those are the things that we've been hearing the most. The lack of access for transportation,
Yes,
and the voter ID laws,
yes.
not having access to IDs, and like I said, like you just said right now, not knowing anything about the voting process, not knowing
That
anything about the.
So that's where I've spent a lot of my energy, is thinking about, because we've spent a lot of time
Mhm.
updating our website so that it is a complete resource and would
Yeah.
answer every question you could possibly ever have about voting, so that the people that can, if you have website access, you can at least go figure out the answer to your questions. So it's pretty much all in there. And so then one other, the whole reason, the reason that I get asked a lot, people often say to me, I vote, but my brother doesn't vote, or my
Mhm.
boyfriend doesn't vote, or my friend doesn't vote. What should I say to them? And one of the thing, we've got a lot of different answers, I believe, but one of them is that that you have representatives, whether you vote or not, and they just move on without you. If you have these representatives and they go to Austin and they work on legislation and bills and improving things that they think are important, and then you have a group that goes to Washington D.C. and works on things, and if you don't vote for them, they just ignore you and they just represent the people that did vote for them. So it's the process, just it's not like boycotting a product, it's different. It's the process is you're not hurting them at all by not voting, you're just making their life easier. So
Right.
you know what I mean? It's sort of like, we feel like that you're going to have representatives, and it's voting. Once you learn how to vote, it's not that hard. So you might as well pick the best choice of the candidates that are offered to you.
So then, because I hear this a lot, I hear it a lot when in my outreach. I always, in doing the best of my ability to inform, and
Mhm.
I always hear, well, what does it matter? It's only one vote. It doesn't matter. One vote can't do anything. That's what I
But
hear.
that's what all 8 million said at the same exact time.
Exactly. Yes. That's exactly what I have said so many times. I said, well, yeah, 1 times 5 million. That's a loud one vote that doesn't
Yeah.
matter response,
Which okay, so then that goes to the layers of government a little bit because there's the president, of course. And so, by the way, when anybody ever gives you the answer that they don't vote because of the electoral college, that's all about the president, right? So there's all these other races. There's the governor and the US senator and the Texas state house and state senate. There are district attorneys. There's the railroad commissioner, which is on the ballot this time, by the way. And that is actually all about environmental regulation of the mining and oil and gas industry in Texas, is what the railroad commissioner actually does. It's a misnomer. And then you come down to who's actually involved in, say, the police and criminal justice and the police unions. I mean, that's your city council, that's your mayor. So when you come to the different layers of the government, there are probably things that you do care about along. There's probably something in there that you care about. If federal, like for example, your U.S. congressman may be involved in immigration law. Your Texas state house and state senator are probably more likely involved in the healthcare program in Texas, right? Because they're doing the funding for that. So I feel like there probably is something that people care about.
Yes.
And then the last point I always tell people is that when you find a candidate that has the same values as you and fights for the things you care about and is sort of thinks like you, and you vote for them, you feel like you gave it a shot, that you tried to get this person elected, and every now and then that person wins, and then you actually have a representative that thinks like you, and it's very cool. So it doesn't happen all the time. You win some, you lose some, but
Right.
that
That is democracy.
that's what really works.
Yeah.
But it's neat when it happens. So that's another reason to vote. Is it because when it works out, it's really good. So anyway,
Yes.
okay. Okay. So one of the things that we always want people to understand is the voting process, because the voting process most of it happens before you actually vote. So, and that's something that's sort of that people don't. Sometimes they just think, oh, you just show up and vote. And it's actually, there's more of a process. So you have to register to vote in Texas. You have to make sure you have a photo ID. Okay. And that one trips up a lot of people. You have to check if you're registered correctly, which is my favorite piece of the process, is to check if you're registered correctly. I'm going to go over that in a minute. Then to research who are your representatives, find out who are your current representatives. That's another one. Research who's going to be on your ballot. Plan how you're going to vote, what day, what time, where you're going, and then you finally vote. So, and that process isn't very time consuming. Once you're registered to vote and you have an ID, the rest of that process is not very time consuming. It might take an hour or two, but it is important to think through that you have to do some things before you vote. Right.
So then how do we check and see that our voter registration was done correctly?
Yes, that's okay. I'll start just by saying, and you'll probably know who's eligible to vote, but just so you know, you have to be 17 and 10 months old to register, a U.S. citizen, reside in Texas. And if you have been a felon, you have to be completely off papers and off parole. And if you are completely off papers and parole, your voting rights are restored in Texas. And just as a side note, one of the things that I would like to change in the next legislative session is that when I go out and meet people, the people who have been felons and are not sure whether their voting rights are restored, and there doesn't seem to be a database where they can go look, and they are afraid to register to vote,
right?
Which is sad.
Yes, it is. It's sad, and let me tell you too. It's so when we started our voter outreach and we started doing the first voter registration drive, the first person that came to our table was a man, an African American man who crossed Berkner, a street. I don't know if you know that street, but it is an extremely dangerous street. He crossed that street to come to our booth because he was a person who fell under, who had just gone off parole and was off paper. And that was the first thing that he wanted to do, was
Good
to
for him.
register to vote. And I will forever how everyone should be included
Yes.
in this process, and
Mhm.
how we shouldn't discount people, for whatever mistakes they did, because I believe that all people should have the right to vote. That's
Yeah,
my personal opinion. And and I know that when we talk about people,
you know,
right, and he still had some doubt, because he mentioned too that he called his at
my favorite part of the whole voting process, because it takes a lot of anxiety out of the main Secretary of State website. And they have you click on, am I registered? And then you have to fill out a few things. And if you come up active, the registration file comes up. It's got your name, your birthday, when you registered, and it'll say status. It either says active, suspended, pending, or just as a blank. So the beauty of that is, once your voter file comes up, it's got links underneath it. And one of the things it has is, who are my representatives? And you click on it and you can see every representative that you currently have. It's all based on your address. And then it's got another, if you go a little further down, it's got another link, and that is view my sample ballot. And you can see a PDF right now. It's on Dallas County Vote's website, a PDF of exactly what will be on your ballot. So
wow.
yeah, no, and it makes people feel so much more relaxed. One, they get to see who they're registered. It says active. They get to see, and it helps, by the way, to look up what name and address you're registered under, because some people can't remember. They don't, and some people have complicated names, or they have double names, and it helps to see what the county. I have all the time people say, oh yeah, they must have entered my names this way or whatever. Just, you need to know what the county thinks your name is. And so then you know what you're registered, you know that you've seen your sample ballot, you know exactly what's going to be on your ballot, you know who are your representatives. I mean, that one spot right there gets you so far down the road. And it really is like a 2-minute exercise.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up about the double names, because actually about 10, 12 years ago, I had that same issue. So my name is Jessica Rivera Lucas,
Right.
and I had that same issue. I had to go and look up and make sure that my voter registration card was correct, because it was not.
Yes.
And so for all of my Latinos, my Hispanos, my Latinas, if you're listening, and you are like me, that has more than one name, go to votetexas.gov and check,
Yes.
because it's a horrible feeling when you show up to the polling location and they tell you no, you can't.
It is. And a lot of people, some people don't vote just because they just don't want to be embarrassed. They feel like, I'm
Right.
not going to go. What if what if they say no?
That's
And
exactly how I felt. It was like a spotlight.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I totally understand. Okay, so then if you for the people, do you want me to go into voter registration at all a little bit?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
There's a couple ways to register. We've been telling just now, where we've sort of changed our path, but just so you know, for the future, there is a website called register2vote.org, and the 2 is a 2. And that is it's a good website. It's a nonpartisan website. You can go in there. You can also see if you're registered in there, and you can follow the instructions. And what they do is, when it's a way to start the registration process online. You can't finish it, because the Texas election code says you have to have a signature and you have to sign it and date it yourself. But what they do is, you fill out all the information and you hit submit, and then they print the form that you just submitted, and they send you the printed form and with a stamped addressed envelope. And then all you have to do is sign the form, date it, put it into the envelope. The envelope's already addressed and already stamped. So what it takes out of the process is the need to have a printer, ink, envelope, and a stamp. And we talk to people all the time, especially young people, that do not have any of those things. There's like,
Right.
oh yeah, I have a printer, but it hasn't had ink in it in 5 years. Or or
Yeah.
or a stamp. My daughter's like, what's a stamp? I mean,
What's
really.
a stamp? That's what I was gonna say. What's a stamp?
What's a stamp? So that's what that's for. Although right now the timing of it is getting almost too tight. We've been using that website for the last 3 months to register people. We've had videos and all these stuff, but now we're getting a little tight because they have to mail you the form and then you have to mail it to the county.
And
So
that's what I was gonna say, because I know that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, because I know that it was mentioned in one of our meetings that we had that the turnaround of what we're seeing with some of the people is 2-3 weeks.
yes,
Is
it
that
was. And they got better. It was
okay?
3 weeks and then it was down to about 5 or 6 days. So we've been monitoring, we've been asking people to do it. Everybody we know, we're saying do it and report back.
Yeah.
So it got down to 5 or 6 days. And so at some point, I haven't gone on there in the last couple of days, it's going to just say, you print the form. So it sort of takes its superpower out, but it still can work because you can do it and then print it, but then you have to get the envelope and the stamp.
Right.
Right. But it sort of partially works.
So then
Getting
right now we're not really, I mean, so then would you say confidently that this isn't something that we're going to necessarily recommend
I'm
to
not
happen right now?
stopped recommending it right about now because we are 11 days out of the
Right.
voter registration deadline, which is right about when I decided I was going to stop. I figured it'd take 5 days. The 5 days, 5 days, it's getting too close. I mean,
Yes.
maybe if someone did it tomorrow, it would work, but at some point we're too close. So, okay, now, so the next thing is registering with paper forms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 kinds of paper forms. If you get the training on the Dallas County elections, which you can do mostly on their website, and then you can go in and take a test. You are allowed to do green forms, and the green forms are what VDRs do. Someone else fills them out, the voter fills them out, and then you turn them in. And so that's one option. We were not doing green form registration until just the last couple of days, and now we're basically going to do green form registration for the whole next 11 days. Then there's what are the mail-in forms, and the mail-in forms are white in color. So mail-in forms, anybody can give out a mail-in form. So that's something. I had some girls from a high school that wanted to organize a voter registration event, and so I went there with them this morning, and they're 16, but that's fine. They can hand out a mail-in form. And so they now are empowered to go help people register to vote. They can hand out a flyer and they can hand out a mail-in form, and that's fine. So that's a good way. We've been doing a lot of registration in like food drive lines and things like that. And we've been in the North Texas Food Bank had asked us not to do green forms. They'd asked us to just do the white forms because they didn't want the paper going back and forth on their watch, which was fine. But so the beauty of these white mail-in forms is that because I don't have to turn it in, I could talk to someone in the car and say, well, do you know anyone else that needs to register? And people are like, oh yeah, I know my brother and my mom and my brother. And I would say, well, I said, here, take 4, I mean, so then we turn people more into voting ambassadors where they go help other people.
It's the empowerment. It's the empowerment. That is big.
Yes.
That is big.
And people are super glad to help. So that's been kind of a nice, we used to just sort of be like, oh, those mail-in forms, and now we're like, we love the mail-in forms now that we discovered them, so that's good. And so then the last way to register for people that want to know, if someone has waited to the very last second. So, so your younger brother or something like that, who just putting it off, if they have access to a car, or if anyone they know has access to a car, you can always drive to Dallas County Elections and walk in and register in person. So Dallas County Elections at 1520 Round Table Drive, and right up to, and I'm not sure what time they're going to close on Monday, October 5th, but I would not, my advice is do not wait to the last minute, but if you have, you could go in there and register that day.
And it would be valid, and
well, you'll definitely be able to vote by November 3rd.
Okay.
I have a couple open questions that I'm trying to figure out, and that one I'm trying to figure out is when's the first time that person who registered on October 5th can vote.
Right.
There's a couple. I have a voting committee at the League of Women Voters, and that's one that none of us are quite sure. We disagree on that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
So then, okay. So the next thing to think about to get ready to vote is to research who's on your ballot. And so the league has one more website that's like important, which is Vote 411. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yes.
But Vote 411 is the digital version of the printed voter guide. And we still do the printed voter guide. And some people love it. Even young people are like, ooh, I love the voter guide. But the digital version is already live. It went live a couple days ago.
Okay.
And so you go to vote411.org, and I need to, you put in you look up yourself up, and then you scroll down to what's called personalized ballot. Then you pick your language, and then you click on something with the word races in it. It's like view my races, I think it is. And literally all this information comes up. It's kind of amazing. Like you can see, we've asked questions, the league asks questions of all the different candidates, and we don't edit it at all. And so, John Cornyn against MJ Hager, or in my case, Candace Valenzuela against Beth Van Dyne. And literally all the questions are in there, and they've answered the questions. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I didn't know that it does that. And so I guess I'm going to not sleep tonight because I'm going to go ahead and go on there.
Go in there and look. No, and it's a good way to find out who your representatives are, because they're in there. It's only when you go to that personalized ballot, it's just the things that are on your ballot. It's not everything else. Yeah. Just so for people to know that when you vote, you can't pull your cell phone out in the polls. And that's a rule that is a function of the fact they don't want you either purposefully or accidentally taking a picture of someone else your neighbor next to you at the polling booth, where you might get to see who they voted for, because it's supposed to be private. So they ask everyone to keep their phone in their pocket or in their purse. So if you do get all your info on your phone, you have to somehow either print it or write it down or something.
Okay. And I'm glad that you're bringing it up, because that was a bit of a scandal the last election, when we had celebrities who had pulled out their phone and took pictures of them in the ballot box.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
I was really quick to tell my kids who have, one of my daughters who is eligible to vote. I was like, don't you dare do that. Don't embarrass me.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, they're not going to throw you in jail, but the election judge will come out and scold you.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
Okay. So then the next thing is if you are voting in person, we would recommend that you vote early. So there are 18 days of early voting. 18.
And you said that earlier, and you said this year is 18 days, as if it was something new. Is it typically not 18? I mean, 18 days, I'm sorry.
It is normally 11 or 12 days, depending on, because it usually starts on either a Monday or Tuesday, runs through one weekend and goes to the next Friday. So it's usually like, depending on, it's either usually 12 days or 11 days, depending on, the reason it starts on a Monday or Tuesday is all about whether that Monday's a holiday. And so in this case, the election we have, that's actually Columbus Day, I think, or something. There's some reason we're starting on a Tuesday. But so when the pandemic happened, Governor Abbott did an executive order with a variety of changes. And one of the changes was he added a week to early voting. So we've never had 18 days of early voting. So it's something, it's really good for voters. Poll workers don't like it so much. I'll just say the average poll worker is like, are you kidding me? Because it's so tiring to work at the polls. And
is that why we're seeing such a huge push for poll workers?
Yes, because they think they're going to have to do things like have people, you're a week and you're a week, or you're every other day, or they think that their poll workers are going to revolt if they don't split up the shifts a little bit or alternate days or something, because 18 days is a lot. And it is. Yeah, it's a lot. And poll working is kind of an intense thing. So just so you know, it's Tuesday, October 13th through Friday, October 30th. So there's 2 full weekends in the middle. It's always Monday through Saturday. It's always 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then in this case, Sundays are 1 to 6. The Sunday hours vary depending on the election and the county and different things, but this Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is pretty much always the way it is. If it's a big election, little elections, sometimes they make them shorter. So that's how that's what you do to go vote. Just so you know about the pandemic, they'll have plexiglass. They're going to try to have the flow through the room one way. They try to have people come in one side and go out the other side. They're going to they'll have hand sanitizer. They'll have sanitizing wipes. They always they do the styluses, so they clean off the styluses. But you are welcome, by the way, to bring your own hand sanitizer, bring your own stylus, bring a pencil with an eraser if you want, so you can, because the voting machine you don't really use pens in the process at all. It's all styluses. So if you have a stylus, that's the way to go. Or you could use the back of a pencil. And if you do that, then you won't really need to touch much of anything. If you want, you can wear a glove and touch the machine, but you don't need to touch the machine. We recommend you wear a mask. You do voters do not have to wear a mask, which is a little controversial this year. But the Secretary of State in Austin decided that they couldn't prevent anyone from voting. They felt like that was just not legally. They weren't allowed to do that. So they're they basically said, if you don't wear a mask, you don't wear a mask. The poll workers will have masks on. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Poll workers will have masks.
So, well, I'm glad they're protected. I did not know that it was not a requirement to wear a mask.
It's not.
Wow.
For a voter. Okay. So then I was just going to, before I gotta get to a couple things. I'm going to make sure I talk about a little bit about vote by mail, because I talked a little bit before, but I just want people to know that the requirements, right? So you're eligible to vote by mail in Texas if you're 65 or older, disabled, will be out of the county during the entire voting period, or confined in jail. Those are the 4 ways you can vote by mail. There's been a lot of discussion about what disabled means. And disabled means that and I don't have the definition with me. Usually I do, but I don't. But it's essentially a long thing that says, if you feel like you would be injured or harmed by voting, then you are disabled. And the thing that's important about that is that the county and the people in the county don't have any authority to review your medical condition, ask you about your medical condition, think about your medical condition. If you say you're disabled, it's up to you. You get to say you're disabled. That's just how it works. They don't question it.
It's not you have to prove you're disabled.
You don't have to prove it. It's not, because they don't have any, they're not authorized to ask you about your medical situation. Exactly. So they don't, and that's it. So if you say you're disabled, they trust that you're disabled. That's how the system works. So, but if you say, I'm afraid of COVID, if you wrote that in on your application, they would throw that out and say that person is not eligible to vote by mail. So you have to say you're disabled. That's how the system works. One of the flaws in that system that comes up in a lot of presentations that I have is that caregivers for people that are very frail are pretty upset right now that they are not in that list of people that are eligible to vote by mail. And I hear a lot of caregivers saying, you have got to be kidding me. My mother is 88 and very frail, and I should not have to vote in person. But legally, unless they're worried about their own situation, the way the law reads, they have to vote in person.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one that has been has come up on all the conversations I've had. So we talked about the fact that there's the list for the vote by mail list and the vote in person list, and they're not the same list. And once you're on the list for vote by mail, I just want to there's a way to find out if you're on that list. Like if you have a mother or a father or someone who's on the vote by mail list, the way to find out if you're on the list, because some people applied a long time ago and can't remember, is to call the county. That is the only way to find out if you're on the list. You have to call.
That is the only way.
It is the only way. You have to call the county and wait on hold. And it's my daughter did it a couple weeks ago because she's away at college, and so she'd applied. And for her, she afterwards, she said, I called, I was only on hold 7 minutes. I was like, that's pretty good, because now the hold lines are getting longer. I'm hearing people saying 30 minutes and that kind of stuff. And she said, she called, she said it was really quick. She said, am I on the vote by mail list? They looked her up. They said, yes, you're on the list.
And yes, she's on the list. Okay, so you call the county that you reside in.
That you're registered in. Yes.
Registered in, I'm sorry. Yes.
Hopefully you're registered. So then in terms of how you turn in a vote by mail ballot, that's kind of become very in the news. So you can either put it in a blue post box, and just like a normal, it's got the postage on it. So once you get it, you pack it all up, put it in a post box. You can walk it into the post office and get it postmarked. That gives you an extra day. You can send it to the county. If you have the means to do this, you can send it to the county by UPS, FedEx, or courier. Those are all allowed. Or you can drive over to the Dallas County Elections Office anytime after you receive that ballot and turn it in person at the county.
At the county.
So that's important to know, that it's theoretically, you can turn your ballot into the county in person. So, and if you want to, okay, so I'm switching over to just becoming a poll worker, just in case after all here, I've told everybody how hard it is. If anybody on this call wants to become a poll worker, you go to Dallas County Elections, that same site, dallascountyvotes.org, and they have you click on the link, and you fill out a form that says, I want to be a poll worker, and they'll call you, and you come in and you fill out forms, just like applying for a job. You come in, you fill out forms, they call you, they assign you to a location.
And then you're a poll worker.
Then you're a poll worker. Literally, that's it. But the application process, I'm hearing, has some crazy questions. I'm in my 50s, and a lot of my friends are in my 50s, and so one of the questions on there is like, where did you live in high school? And people are like, I don't even remember. I've had like 60 jobs since then.
Yeah. Hey,
Anyway.
well, that brings up something really important in streamlining those applications, and because the logistically and just in realness of it is, a lot of our older population are the ones that are the poll workers.
Yes.
So that is a very good point to bring up when they're having to fill out those applications.
Yes. So we need younger poll workers. We actually really need bilingual poll workers, by the way. So if anyone on this is bilingual and is interested in being a poll worker, they are very desperate for bilingual poll workers.
Awesome. So si usted está interesado de trabajar el día de elección, come on, we need you. I have submitted my application, by the way, before I have someone call me out on it. I have.
You have?
Yes, I have, Barbara.
Okay, so if they haven't gotten back to you, you also have to call and wait on hold. That's the other. I know a couple people that had to call and wait on hold to say, why aren't you calling me back? And then, I don't know, then they got it worked out.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they call me before early voting starts, because that's when I really wanted to, jump in and learn more. I think it's also something that we also as citizens need to take the initiative in, to empower ourselves and get in down and dirty in the system, in the process, and doing things like becoming BDRs, like becoming poll workers, hosting drives.
Yes.
I have learned so much in this election season, and that's not because of the election season. It's because of the, of getting in there and doing the work.
It is great. And this is a good time to get in there and convince other people to vote, and keep working. I feel like there's a lot of negativity about the actual election process, and we feel like that we want to be a little more positive about it, because mostly it works pretty well. So, and if you're like me, I've been a poll worker and I know how hard it is. And I'm like, it is a human process. So there are areas where it doesn't always go smoothly, and the things are unplugging, and somebody, you're just constantly trying to make sure all the equipment is working, and things are beeping, and you're just like, but you work through it, because it's a bunch of humans trying to make it work. So
I know that we're coming down to the time.
Down to the end. I have one last thing I want to tell people about, is the League of Women Voters has a hotline. So does Mi Familia Vota, by the way. So I don't know if you're familiar with them, but we have a hotline on Mondays. Our Monday, we always answer our phone and call people back. So if anybody has any kind of voting question, we always call people back. Sometimes it takes us 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on where we are. And our phone number is 214-688-4125. But on Mondays, we have a lot of people staffed, so we can pretty much call you back in like a minute or two. if you have any kind of voting question at all. And 2 to 4 and 6 to 8 are our main hotline times. But we can call you all day. We call people back really fast on Mondays. And Mi Familia Vota, theirs is a Spanish hotline, and theirs is on Tuesdays. So if you want to talk in Spanish, you can call them on Tuesdays. And I don't have their number with me, but I need to get it. And then, or I could send it to y'all, and you could send it out.
Yeah.
Then, but we're Mondays.
But you're
And then
Mondays.
our website has all the answers, lwvdallas.org. And we also are always looking for more members and volunteers. And we put in a huge sign-up sheet of outdoor voter registration events. So if you go to our website and click on participate, volunteer, we have probably 50 events in the next 11 days.
Yeah, I saw the email that you sent out, Barbara. I was like, oh, you're one busy woman. Yes, I saw the email. So I'm definitely going to share that with our team so they can join forces. We're stronger in numbers, and it's very important right now, all the time. And I think one of the conversations that I had at that voter registration drive that we had was with a younger couple. They were in their early 20s, and they had never registered to vote. And the young man asked me, well, why do you think I should register? And it kind of hit me because I was like, he put me on the spot. And so I mean, he's African American and I am Hispana. And so I said, Black and brown communities, we need this. We need representation. And we focus so much on the presidential elections, we forget how important our local and state elections are. And in my opinion, and I know I've read it and I've heard it before, it's so much more important than presidential elections in many ways. In many ways. And so we had a really good deep conversation about that, and when we talk about what is needed for our communities to strive, and how important and how impactful our vote is. Exactly. So that we can help our local and our state and getting those resources that our communities need. And so it was an amazing conversation, and they registered to vote. So
good job.
It was really good. It was really a lot of really good first times. So because we are already down to we're a little 5 minutes past our hour, and I want to honor everybody's time, but I want to leave this on give me your elevator pitch on getting people to register to vote on, because you gave us a lot of information, and I really hope everyone who is watching, this is going to be on YouTube, replay it for your families, make it a family event, or replay it with your friends. So there's a lot of information, a lot of websites, a lot of places you can go to get answers. But what's your elevator pitch?
Yeah, my opinion is that voting is the first part of the process in being able to change your community in ways that you want to change your community. It's not the whole process. It's just the first little piece of the puzzle, but it's an important piece of the puzzle. And then you have to let's say you get a representative that you really like, then you have to work with them and make sure they understand the information. And then you have to tell them what you think, and you write letters, and there's a lot of pieces of the process, but voting is just one little piece of the process. But once you learn how to vote, it's not that hard, and it's definitely worth it, because when you get representatives that think like you and fight for the things that you care about, it's so valuable.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, Barbara, for coming and spending this hour with us. And I am looking forward to the work that we're going to do with the league. Yes. And I am looking forward to maybe future partnerships, future panels on all kinds of different things that, the league is doing, and to help further the empowerment of knowledge. That's what I want to say. The empowerment of knowledge.
Yes. The league says that their objectives are empowering voters and defending democracy.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what we're all doing here. So everyone have a good night. I think, Barbara, you are the host, so you can go ahead and end this.
End it. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jessica.
Bye.
Bye.